Hey everyone! Before we get started today, we want to thank our newest patron, Leah. Welcome to the team. We also have some sad news to share with you all. As you may or may not have seen on Instagram, our wonderful friend and the co author of the For the Love of Austin books, Audrey Beleza, has been diagnosed with stage 4 ALK positive lung cancer. Now, because she is incredible, she's started a nonprofit organization to raise awareness, fund research, and to accelerate the development of a life saving vaccine for this type of cancer. To hear Audrey's full story, to learn more about ALK positive lung cancer, and to donate to the vaccine development effort, head on over to loveforlungs.org. That's LOVE, the number 4, LUNGS.org. And please, please, please share Audrey's story as far and wide as you can. We really want to help get the word out. And now, on a lighter note, please enjoy this week's episode covering chapters 6 and 7 of Mansfield Park.
I do this horrible thing, and it's like one of those things about the environment I feel really guilty about, where like I will leave a glass of water 75% drunk and then I'll forget about it.
Yeah.
And the best part about being married is that Mike has noticed this about me, and he takes the water and he uses it to water his plants.
Oh, that's very nice.
I know, and I don't feel nearly as bad as I used to.
I should do that. Well, I usually drink my water that I have lying around. It's actually mostly half-drunk cups of coffee that I leave lying around.
Oh, I was gonna say you could also give some Milo because we also give to Doc sometimes.
Milo
but
can't have coffee.
Yeah, but Milo and coffee would be bad for everybody.
Oh, Milo, you'd be so hyper.
I know. I was picturing how the 4 pounds of him just like popping off.
Speaking of popping off,
This is Becca.
this is Molly.
We're here to talk about Jane Austen.
We are here specifically to talk about
Mansfield Park. I like how quickly Lee landed on that one.
Yeah, it's very it's like highfalutin.
Exactly. Listeners, if you're new here, I, Becca, have read many Jane Austen novels through my lifetime.
And I, Molly, am reading her for the first time through this podcast.
If you want to hear Molly read through Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Emma, or Persuasion for the first time, you can listen to seasons 1, 2, 3, and 4 of this podcast, respectively. But that is not what we're doing here today.
No, today we are talking about Mansfield Park, Volume the First, chapters 6 and 7.
Hey, Molly, how are you feeling so far?
I feel like so much is happening, Becca. The first chapter, I was like, nothing's really happening. We're just talking about landscaping. In the second chapter, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa.
So much is happening amongst the landscape.
Yeah, well, there is a
Yeah.
lot of stuff happening in the landscape.
Yeah, it's a lot. And boy, oh boy, there's so much to talk about with Mansfield Park. To pick up where we left off, we were introduced to Mary and Henry Crawford, who have just come to town to be hot and in the vicinity.
Well, actually, for Henry Crawford to not be conventionally hot.
Well, okay, listen, we've talked about this. I think like hot energy coming off of Henry Crawford, I personally think, and without spoiling much, this is something that pans out in the adaptations. You can cast a hot man to play Henry Crawford.
Yeah.
Because clearly the conceit of the character is everyone's supposed to be attracted to him.
Yes. I mean, he has very hot energy. And we were talking about this in our patron Discord community. What makes someone conventionally attractive and how that's not really like a good metric of what's an actually attractive person, because a lot of things play into someone's attractiveness other than like facial symmetry.
Oh, 100%. And we talked about this like as far back as the second episode of the show, because you get Darcy like in the first episode being like, ugh, Lizzie's not that hot. And then he like talks to her for a little bit and he was like, that is the most attractive person I've ever met in my life. And then he literally derails his entire life because of her.
Yeah.
So when we say that someone's not conventionally hot or like conventionally handsome, it does not mean they're not hot.
Yeah.
It just means that like we as a society have a really fucked up set of beauty standards
Yeah.
that we impress upon everybody else.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have as much to do with who you're actually like wanting to have sex with as it does to do with what society deems you to want to have sex with.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No, totally.
Yeah. So anyway, all this to say, there's a whole culture of women putting little toothpicks on cakes then saying hear me out, and it's like a worm. Like women and, well, I should say everybody really, not just women, have like very diffuse like attractive things. And some people just give off hot energy. And that's what we have with Henry Crawford.
Henry Crawford gives hot energy.
Yes. And Mary Crawford also gives hot energy and
Mary
is
Crawford is also hot.
hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just hot.
But
Yeah.
to me, has an unattractive personality.
Ooh, okay. We'll get into it. I'm really
Yeah.
excited.
I don't like her.
Okay.
So we'll get there. But
yeah. So at this point, basically, Mrs. Norris declines to have Fanny live with her.
right.
Mary and Henry come to town.
Yes.
Henry is what we would call a quote horrible flirt.
He's a horrible flirt. If you don't want your heart broke, stay far away from Henry Crawford.
And Mary Crawford has her sights set upon one Big T.
Big T.
Yeah.
Big T. And has Big T left yet at this point, or is he about to leave?
He's
about to leave.
Just about to leave.
He's about to leave.
Which
okay.
brings us into chapter 6 very nicely.
Thank you. So Tom Big T leaves, and Miss Crawford is basically prepared for the worst, thinking Edmund is going to be a wet blanket as the head of the household. But Mr. Rushworth is here to visit. And boy, oh boy, does he have a lot to say about landscaping.
Yeah, he, like Lizzie Bennet, is very hot for landscaping.
I'm really glad that this has been a through line through all of Jane Austen.
Listen, they have very little to do, and they have a lot of time on a lot of land. So you have to think about like what you want to do with the land, I guess. Like their whole lives are Pinterest boards.
Exactly. So Mr. Rushworth has just visited a friend who has redone his whole place. And he comes back and all he wants to talk about is home improvement. So he says when he got back to his estate, which is Southerton, it looked like a prison to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he really wants some good friend to help him improve upon it.
Mm-hmm.
Wink, wink, Maria Bertram.
Yes.
Yes. Maria Bertram is like, well, you should get Mr. Repton then. Very classy. Mr. Repton being the person who just did Smith's estate.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too. Totally.
Not my to-be wife.
Of course not.
Because, reminder, they are engaged.
Oh, yeah. They're engaged at this point. They have no chemistry.
Graham played the sound effect. That is the signal for engagement. And they are engaged. And they have her father's approval.
And yet she's like, yeah, you should get Mr. Repton to do it.
You know what it is? You know that guy that Rory keeps forgetting she broke up with on Gilmore Girls?
Yeah, it's Paul.
Yeah, he's giving Paul.
He really is. And there's nothing wrong with Paul.
No. Well, Mr. Rushworth is a little dum-dum, but...
Yeah, but he's not malicious.
No. And Mariah's like, oh, right, you're here. And then she gets really excited when he starts talking about his house.
Yes, because we love a house and we love a home improvement project.
Indeed, especially one on a manor. It's not as much fun to renovate a studio apartment.
No. So Mr. Repton's rate is 5 guineas a day, and Mrs. Norris pops in to say, well, even if it were 10 a day, that shouldn't be a problem for you, which I felt was kind of improper, like to draw attention to his wealth in that way.
Yeah, I feel like it probably is improper. It's giving Mrs. Bennet.
Yeah, that's what I was feeling.
Yeah.
And she talks about then, as you said, how if she had something more than a studio apartment, she would be constantly improving upon it. But as it were,
well, it's not a studio. Remember, she has her room for a friend.
I'm sorry, her 2-bedroom. She's a half acre. She's like, oh, I could never. She says that when she was at the parsonage, however, she and not her husband, but Sir Thomas did a great deal to it. Not as much as she would have liked due to her husband's health. One thing they did do, though, was they planted an apricot tree. And she turns to Dr. Grant and she's like, and now that tree is like grown to perfection, right? And he's like, yeah, it's thriving. Unfortunately, apricots are the worst. He hates them.
Fuck apricots. I actually don't like apricots very much.
Oh, I love apricots.
Not my thing.
I get it. I didn't always, but at some point, your taste buds just change and then you're like, oh, I like this.
So suddenly this leathery thing tastes nice.
Well, it's only leathery if you dry it out.
Ugh, I hate dried apricots.
Well, he says that he's like, yeah, it's really nice. It's a really funny quote. It's not my funniest quote, is it? Hang on. Sorry, it is my funniest quote, so I will not read it right now, but it's a very funny quote about the apricots. And Mrs. Norris is like, well, it's a Moor Park, which is an apricot tree, a
species.
of apricot tree, and it's a fancy one. She says it costs 7 shillings, or rather, it was a gift from Sir Thomas, but she saw the receipt and it cost 7 shillings. And he says, "It is not a Moor Park. These potatoes taste more like Moor Park apricots than the ones growing on that tree." And Mrs. Grant jumps in at this point to be like, "Well, it's okay. He wouldn't actually know what they taste like. He does not eat them. Our cook takes all of them and turns them into
You know
jams."
who doesn't get enough credit?
Mrs. Grant.
Mrs. Grant.
She should get all the credit. She
Yes.
sees this situation escalating and she's like, "Oh, it's such a fruitful tree. We make so much jam."
Yeah, she's really here holding down the fort for everybody.
I love her. The conversation goes back to home improvement at this point, and Lady Bertram recommends that Rushworth put in a shrubbery, and Rushworth then talks himself into a corner by being like, "Oh yes, anything you say, I'm always looking out for the comfort of ladies. Well, actually, I'm always looking out for the comfort of one lady in particular." In my head, this was all very awkward, but like you point out that they are already engaged.
No, they're actually engaged, and you just forgot because Mariah keeps forgetting.
They're so awkward.
Yeah, they do not have a vibe.
No.
There is nothing in this lasagna. It is like fresh made.
Well, there's like 10,000 a year in this lasagna.
Yeah, it's a very expensive lasagna.
Yeah, it's like gold plated.
Yeah.
Edmund tries to stop the conversation by pouring more wine, but Mr. Rushworth will not shut up about the landscaping. And he says he wants to cut down the avenue, which is when the trees are planted in a row and you can walk in between. And Fanny, who has been silent until now, looks up and is like, "Well, that would be a pity." And then she quotes the poet, Cooper, saying, "Ye fallen avenues, once more I mourn your fate unmerited." She's really pulling a Bennick in this moment with her little poetry quoting.
Yes, indeed.
I think she's saying this to Edmund, though, like under her breath, not to Rushworth, because then the conversation goes back and forth and they're talking about Rushworth. So I think all of this is happening on the other side of the table.
It's either that she's saying this kind of offhandedly to the side to Edmund,
That's what I'm getting.
or she says it and no one's paying attention to her, which is
That's
also possible.
Also possible. But she says she wants to see the estate before it's cut down. And Edmund says, "Well, you probably won't because it's too far of a journey." And she says, "Well, if I ever do see it, you can just tell me how it's been altered, like what's different, what it used to look like." And then Miss Crawford pops in to ask about the building itself. And Edmund explains it's a plain brick building and it's in a bad spot, but it has good grounds. And Miss Crawford says, "He is a well-bred man and will make the most of it." Weird, I think. I don't know. I didn't like it. I feel like she's creeping in on everyone's man.
Oh, well, if we want to talk about creeping in on somebody's man,
I don't know. I have feelings about it.
we're going to get there.
Yeah. Edmund then says if he were Rushworth, he would not hire an improver. He would rather do everything himself. And Miss Crawford says she would hire an improver because she doesn't have an eye for these sort of things. And she wouldn't look at it until it were finished. She would just want it all done when she got there. Fanny disagrees and says she would very much like to watch the process. And then Miss Crawford says she thinks improvements in hand, meaning like under her own supervision, are a nuisance. And then she tells a story about a time 3 years ago when her uncle bought a summer cottage and it was so pretty, but it needed these improvements. And they got there, and for 3 months, everything was under construction and she was miserable. So she would rather just have it all done. But Henry is different. He loves to be doing.
Yeah, he does.
Edmund thinks it's improper that she's talking about her uncle like this, which I don't really think she said anything that bad.
Well, I
What
think
was
she's
bad?
Well, I think she's complaining about his being a nuisance to her when he bought her a summer cottage, which is a little bit spoiled.
Well, that's very spoiled, I
Yeah.
guess. But I guess he's the one who wanted to do the improvements. And so she was annoyed about that.
Yeah, it seems so.
But Edmund is soon induced to forget that he's annoyed at her because of her smiles and the liveliness.
Oh, is he?
Mm-hmm.
Soon to forget his misgivings about her
Mm-hmm.
because she got a pretty smile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She tells him that her harp has arrived in Northampton and that it has been there for 10 days, but she's only just now heard about it because, you see, they had asked to directly. And, quote, "This will not do 70 miles from London. This morning we heard of it the right way. It was seen by some farmer, and he told the miller, and the miller told the butcher, and the butcher's son in law left word at the shop." I find her so annoying. I know that she's like joking, but she's belittling country life, and I don't like it.
Oh, man, you already have some bitch crackers.
I do have bitch crackers. Yeah, the
Yeah.
return of the bitch crackers.
Yeah.
She goes on to say that she also tried to hire a horse and cart to bring the harp to her home, but it was impossible. She was treated as if she were asking for the most difficult thing in the world. And Edmund says, well, it is the middle of the harvest, so you can't really expect farmers to give up their horses and carts. And she's like, well, I operate under the London maxim that anything can be bought with money, but she's sure she's going to understand their country ways in time. And in any event, Henry is going to go get the harp in his barouche.
Yes, the return of the barouche. Because Henry's got himself a little sports car.
Yes. So the harp is Edmund's favorite instrument because, of course, it is.
Oh, boy.
And Fanny has never heard it at all, so they both want to hear her play. She tells Edmund that if he writes to Big T, to tell him the harp has come, and to tell him she will prepare her most plaintive airs against his return in compassion to his feelings, as I know his horse will lose. Is she trying to flirt by being mean?
Well, she's being a little mean to Big T, but he's not there.
But, like, in
Yeah.
a flirtatious way. She's like, "Ugh, I know his horse is gonna lose, so I'll be so sad when he comes back."
Yeah. She's being flirty.
Ugh. Like, I don't hate it, but
Well, I feel like your hackles are up for our girl, Fanny.
my hackles are up, but at the same time, by the end of these chapters, my feelings kind of had changed about a certain person.
Oh, I wonder who that could be. I'm going to quote you from like 2 episodes ago,
Yeah.
but we're gonna get there. But we have so much to get through. I want to go fully into this conversation
Yes.
later.
Okay, okay. So Edmund says, sure, he will if he writes, but he probably won't write. And she's like, of course, brothers never write unless they have something bad. It's like bad news to report. And even Henry, the most wonderful brother in the world, barely writes. And when he does, he uses as few words as possible. Fanny says, well, if brothers are far away from their family, they can write long letters. And Edmund explains that Fanny has a brother at sea who is an excellent correspondent. Not dead.
Not dead. You
This
were
was
worried.
news.
You
Yeah.
were worried.
I was.
William is alive and well
And writing.
and writing letters years later to Fanny.
What a good brother.
Yeah, this is sort of the reveal that like since Fanny was placed at Mansfield Park and William with Her Majesty's service, they basically have been in constant contact,
Yeah.
but through long letters that take months to get to each other
Right.
for years, but they still carry, the love and deep connection together through letter writing to each other.
So sweet.
Very sweet.
Miss Crawford wants to hear about William, and Edmund makes Fanny actually speak for herself. She would really rather not, but she does. She explains everything except for how long he's been away because she would cry if she talks about it.
Mm-hmm.
Edmund asks Miss Crawford if she knows William's captain, since she's so well acquainted with the Navy, and she says that she's only acquainted with admirals and up.
Yes.
Meh.
A little snooty.
And that makes Edmund remember that she's kind of annoying.
She also kind of shits on her uncle here
Oh, right.
because she's like, unfortunately for me, they're all brutes, basically.
Oh, yeah, she does say
Yeah.
that, huh?
Yeah.
So all around, not making Edmund feel great about her.
Except when she smiles.
Yeah, because then she smiles and he forgets.
Mhm.
She also says that the Navy is only an admiral profession if it makes money.
Yikes.
Edmund then changes the subject back to the harp because he wants to remember how pretty the harp is and
Yes.
how pretty she is. Meanwhile, at the other end of the table, they're still talking about landscaping. And Mrs. Grant then calls across the table to Henry, who is here. He hasn't said anything yet either. And she asks if he has opinions about this since he's done so much at his estate, which is Everingham, probably.
Yes, Everingham.
And she says she'd love to see it again. And he says she may be disappointed because when he got there, he only actually worked on it for like 3 months because it was already so nice and he didn't really have to do much. So it's pretty much the same as when he got there. And he's jealous that Rushworth is just beginning his home improvement journey.
I mean, Henry Crawford, hot energy and HGTV like binger.
He's what are they called? The Property
Property
Brothers?
Brothers? Yeah, he's giving Property Brothers.
Wait, now I'm picturing a property brother.
Oh boy.
Julia suggests that Henry help Rushworth. Also, remember, Julia's flirting with Henry.
Yes.
She suggests that he help Rushworth with the project because it would be much better to have a friend help than like hire someone. And everyone agrees with this. And Rushworth then is like, yeah, why don't you come stay and see the place? And Mrs. Norris is like, well, we can't have Henry away from the girls. Why don't we all come see the place? Which is so weird to just be like, we'll all come over
To your home.
to your home and we'll all sleep there.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, Henry can drive him and me and Mariah and Julia. Edmund can go on horseback and Fanny will stay with Lady Bertram.
Of course she will.
Ugh.
First of all, Mrs. Norris, cruel to Fanny, always the case. Butting in, always the case. So, in this moment, aggressively being Mariah's mom.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Lady Bertram will stay home with Fanny.
Right. Like literally not even leaving room for the possibility that she might want to come.
Well, she doesn't.
Which of course she doesn't. But like
Who
because
would?
because this is a weird thing to do,
Yes.
in my opinion.
Well, yes. But also it's just like, because remember, like going to see Grand Estates is like a thing.
Yeah.
But also, like, it's just weird because she's just inserting herself into this like attachment
Yeah.
as if it involves her.
Right.
But also because, you know, she like likes to attach herself to the wealthiest person in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Edmund hears all of this and says nothing, which I didn't love from him.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing us to chapter 7.
We'll call this one The Tables Turn on Molly's Affections.
Yes. This is insane, y'all, because that whole chapter was about landscaping, practically.
Yeah.
And then in this chapter, like everything happens.
Yes.
Edmund asks Fanny what she thinks of Miss Crawford, and Fanny says she likes her very much. She says, I like to hear her talk. She entertains me, and she is so extremely pretty that I have great pleasure in looking at her.
Gay.
Gay. I was like, oh, are they the two gay women on the cover of my book?
I mean, they're giving some gay.
I think that this is Fanny and Mary on my book.
Mm.
I will say that normally I would be like gay. I ship it, and I obviously did just say gay. But I actually think that Fanny says this more in like a very naive, young, like looking up to someone kind of way, despite them being almost the same age.
Yeah, Fanny is a little younger than everybody in the book, but like the fact that she like joined this world a little later and that we met her as a child and she's so timid, she translates as so much younger than the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Edmund asks if anything felt off about their conversation. And Fanny says, well, yeah, the part where she was talking shit about her uncle didn't feel great. She should feel grateful to him. Which, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
the sass that just snapped into Molly's every motion. I wish you guys could have seen it.
what I really want is for Fanny to have her own individual thought.
Huh.
And I want her to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like she's constantly just saying what she thinks people want to hear from her.
What? Who wants to hear from her?
Well, Edmund.
Yeah, mostly Edmund.
Edmund. And right now she thinks he wants to hear that something felt off about their conversation. And she's like, well, she should feel grateful to her uncle. Also that has to do with the fact that she's being raised by an uncle who is not abusive to her, but who looks down on her, and by a family who looks down on her. And she's been taught by an aunt who really abuses her. And she's been taught to feel grateful that she has anything at all.
All the time.
All the time. So she sees someone not being grateful for their little slice of life.
Mhm.
And she's like, how dare she? She's
Yeah.
like taken on this mindset that Mrs. Norris has put into her.
Yeah.
And so that's really frustrating because I do believe that Mary Crawford has nothing to feel grateful for from her uncle, and there's no I mean, we don't know. He did buy her
Yeah.
a summer cottage, but, like
I mean, I don't know if it's nothing to feel grateful for, but it's certainly, like, ridiculous to police how someone's feeling about their family.
yeah. Yeah, and if he's mean to her, then of course she's not gonna feel good about him. And Edmund actually agrees with me, and he says, I don't know that she needs to feel grateful to him necessarily, but, like, I think that she's more harsh on him than she might be because she loves her aunt so much. And so, like, the contrast is starker because her
Yeah,
aunt is awesome.
and also her aunt was done dirty,
Yes.
and, like, she's defensive of her aunt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because her aunt to remind myself, her aunt died and then her uncle brought his mistress into their house.
Yeah, basically shacked up with a lady.
Mm. So Edmund says that he doesn't blame Miss Crawford for how she feels, but he does think it's improper to put those feelings so publicly
Mhm.
into light. And Fanny says, well, shouldn't we blame Mrs. Crawford for Mary's impropriety since she's the one who raised her? Like, she didn't give her the right way of thinking about her uncle, which is a conversation that came up earlier in the book too, right? About girls being raised and whether we should blame mothers for the way daughters turn out. That was
Yeah.
something that happened.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about the way in which, like, class formed in Mariah and Julia
Mhm.
based on how they were told to treat Fanny at a
Mm.
young age, and it formed who they were as people. And
Mhm.
that is a big theme in this book, if you can't tell, is what do you impress upon your children? And what do they take, and how does that form them?
Right.
And what are the values that we pass on that are worth valuing, essentially?
Yeah.
And even in this microcosm, you see this in the interactions between Edmund and Fanny, because in a lot of ways, she's just mirroring his values. But, like, we'll get into it because I have a study question on it. But, like, this scene is fascinating because it's his professed values. She's feeling them more organically in this moment than he is,
Yeah.
but they're his thoughts.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's a
Mhm.
very weird interaction for sure.
Mhm. He agrees with her and says, at least Mrs. Grant is a good influence, and Mary speaks really well of her brother. And Fanny says, except for the fact that he says that he doesn't write to her, and William would never. And also, what right does she have to assume that you wouldn't write to your sister or brother? Um,
I'm sorry. Fanny.
Fanny. And he says, the right of a lively mind, seizing whatever may contribute to its own amusement or that of others. I highlighted this simply because the Morgan exhibit was called A Lively Mind, so I felt like this line was important.
I mean, it's a beautiful line.
It is, and it's describing the overly excited, kind of overly imaginative mind
Yes.
of a woman who likes to make shit up in her head.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Relatable.
Yeah. He then says that he thinks that she is perfectly feminine, except in all of the ways they've just discussed.
Perfectly feminine. Just,
Yeah.
like, something about that line really gives me the ick.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It sure does.
Ugh.
Because he's talking about all of the things that, like, are proper and good in her, and it's, like, so feminine. Like, she's just such a lady. I don't like it.
She's doing girl right.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And then he says, "I'm glad you saw it all as I did." Mm. And then it says
Oh, the finger is up. She is pointing.
I have to gesticulate because he walks away having formed her mind and gained her affections. He just has too much power over her. I don't like it.
Mm.
I don't like it anymore.
Mm.
Mm.
No, you do not.
No.
No.
I wanna say, because we're recording this after our last episode was released, and our listeners are having a field day with the fact that I'm shipping or that I was shipping Edmund and Fanny so hard. In the comments of our most recent post, which was like, you have your first cousins, and then you have you have your
Your
cousins and
cousins
your
and you have your
first
first
cousins.
cousins?
They were like, one person today was like, I just in thinking back to when you guys watched Clueless and Molly was so icked out by Cher and Josh being not even really related ex step siblings.
Yep.
And I was like, I can't explain myself. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're pushing up against is not necessarily the cousin thing.
No, it's no, what it is that in spite of them being cousins, I was still shipping them and people were excited about that. Now, what I'm pushing up against is it's still not the fact that they're cousins. Like, that's not the problem here, oddly enough.
No, it is not the problem. I mean, it's relatedly the problem, but it's, like, only, like, a part of it.
Which I still can't I have no explanation for myself.
Yeah, I mean, the problem redounds to the horse, and we'll
Yes,
get into it.
we will get into the
We will get
horse.
into the fucking horse.
What an idiot he is. Okay.
Wow! Oh my god! Ooh. Oh,
Becca's
boy.
loving this.
Oh god, I'm living. I was waiting for this chapter so hard.
Oh my god. So, Edmund thinks that they both feel the same about Mary, but narrator tells us they're in danger of soon having some dissimilarity of feeling because he's about to go down a path which Fanny cannot follow. Or can she? Gay.
ASMR gay.
What?
ASMR
Oh,
gay.
ASMR gay.
It's gay. Her name is Fanny. It's literally Fanny.
Nice. That was good. That was good. Okay. So Edmund goes to watch Mary play the harp every day, and pretty soon he's in love.
Want to take a step back from poo-pooing our boy here.
Sure.
I do want to read a passage from this portion because I actually think this is beautifully written, and it's interesting that it's beautifully written.
Okay.
A young woman, pretty, lively, with a harp as elegant as herself, and both placed near a window cut down to the ground and opening on a little lawn surrounded by shrubs in the rich foliage of summer, was enough to catch any man's heart. The season, the scene, the air were all favorable to tenderness and sentiment. Mrs. Grant and her timbre frame were not without their use. It was all in harmony. And as everything will turn to account when love is once set going, even the sandwich tray and Dr. Grant doing the honors of it were worth looking at. Without studying the business, however, or knowing what he was about, Edmund was beginning, at the end of a week of such intercourse, to be a good deal in love. And to the credit of the lady, it may be added that, without his being a man of the world or an elder brother, without any of the arts of flattery or the gaieties of small talk, he began to be agreeable to her. She felt it to be so, though she had not foreseen and could hardly understand it. For he was not pleasant by any common rule. He talked no nonsense, he paid no compliments, his opinions were unbending, his attentions tranquil and simple. There was a charm, perhaps, in his sincerity, his steadiness, his integrity, which Miss Crawford might be equal to feel, though not equal to discuss with herself.
Well, dang.
That's actually really pretty.
It
and I find
is.
it wild that it's so prettily written.
It is really prettily written. And hearing you read it, like, in that voice, and, like, I was picturing, like, everything that you were
You see the
saying.
scene, and she's like sitting in the parish house with this stunning harp, and she's like, you see this picturesque, gorgeous girl playing the harp, and this beautiful bay window of summer behind her, even to the point where Dr. Krantz apparently housing a tray of sandwiches, and it's all part and parcel. And Edmund's sitting and listening to her play music and falling in love with her, and she is this like very outlandish woman
Mhm.
who is kind of not partial to the country lifestyle or the the sturdiness of it, but she finds something to feel for in Edmund's quiet grace and his sturdiness and his attentions not being over the top to her.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I think obviously Fanny is our protagonist and we're going to talk about this so much, but like we know how Fanny's already kind of feeling and it's not described that way.
Right.
And so there's so much to talk about with it because Jane Austen wrote this book.
Right.
And she wrote, "If I loved you less, I might be able to talk about it more. You pierce my soul. I am half agony, half hope." When you get descriptions of beautiful scenes of love from Jane Austen, she is generally not describing the other woman.
Yeah.
It's really weird and it's really interesting.
That is super interesting. And just hearing it out loud gave it a completely different quality from the quality I was reading it with in my head, because I was reading it with, like, sass and
There is
snark.
definitely sass there.
But the way that you just read it made it almost seem like kind of her falling in love with him in spite of herself, in a way that feels less uppity and snooty and more like Mr. Darcy being like, "Holy shit," and not to say that Mr. Darcy isn't uppity and snooty, but
He is uppity and
he
snooty.
is, but it is a romantic thing to find yourself falling in love with someone despite all of your prior notions about what that person might be.
Yeah, and that's what I find really interesting about that passage is that
Mhm.
it's sort of in spite of herself, she's feeling something,
Mhm.
and he's just falling in love with her. And it's tough for our girl Fanny.
It is,
Um,
although it has not been explicitly stated that Fanny is in love with him,
yeah.
because, again, he is her first cousin,
Well, there's your cousins, and
and
then
then you have
there's
your
your
first
first cousins.
cousins. I mean, it is pretty obvious because later on we'll get her actual jealousy, but I don't think that Fanny knows that's what she's feeling,
Mm.
at least not yet, because, again, he's her cousin. But, like, I think that her jealousy, she thinks is just because he's the one person that's ever cared about her and suddenly he cares about someone else.
Well, that is also a very large part of it.
Yeah.
Shall we turn to that
We
portion?
shall continue, yeah.
Because I got so many feelings about the fucking horse.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay, so first, Fanny is watching Edmund go to the parsonage every day and kind of observing the fact that, like, "Oh, I think I would like to also be going to listen to the harp, but I understand why I wasn't invited." She observes that when the two families go out walking, Edmund always walks the Crawford ladies home and Mr. Crawford walks the Bertram ladies home, which she just is like, "Yeah, that makes sense." It doesn't. It doesn't make sense, Fanny. I highlighted if Edmund were not there to mix the wine and the water for her, she would rather go without it than not. Does she get her wine watered down before she can drink it?
Seems like that might be the case.
Again, kind of treating her as younger than she is, maybe?
Yeah, although I don't know if it's metaphorical or not. I can't really tell.
Why would we be talking about mixing wine and water? Is that a thing?
And maybe a sensitive stomach.
Mm. Okay. Anyway, she just depends on him a lot. And she's surprised that he could be spending so much time with Miss Crawford and not finding more of the faults in her,
Mm,
which they had discussed.
yeah.
Because every time she hangs out with Miss Crawford, she's like, it's exacerbated. But she doesn't say anything because she thinks that Edmund likes her and she doesn't want to seem like nitpicky or adverse.
Yeah.
So here we go. Mary wants to learn how to ride a horse. We've come up to it. And Edmund suggests that she use his mare.
Oh.
All
Ooh.
we can really say about it is ooh.
Ooh. Yeah. A very, very tough moment for our guy Edmund Bertram.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Buying Fanny the horse, beautiful act. But making it conditional on his use with a lady didn't really buy her the horse then, did he?
No, he didn't buy her the horse. He
No.
bought himself a horse.
He bought a horse as a nice thing, but it's still his enough that when he wants to use it to gain favor with a lady, he does not have a problem.
He's regifting
He is regifting a horse.
in front of her.
Ugh.
Like, even worse, with her permission. Because, like, he goes to her and he's like, is it okay if we use the horse in the morning and you get it half an hour before you're scheduled to ride? And she's like, oh my God, thank you so much for asking me. Like, I'm so honored that you even thought to check with me about the
Yeah.
horse that you got for me to ride.
Yeah. Well, like she's been told over and over again, gratitude.
Gratitude.
Gratitude. You earned nothing. You are owed nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything you get is a gift.
Mm.
But do you also remember being 16 and feeling like that about certain things? Like, I feel like you and I were both similar 16-year-olds and that people would walk all over us.
Yes.
Yes. And I know Fanny's 18 here, but she's giving 16.
She's giving, yes, 14 to 16.
Yeah.
So the first day of the horse agreement, everything goes okay. And the horse is back in time and it's perfect. The second day, not so much, because Mary is enjoying herself too much and loses track of time.
She's so naturally adept at riding the horse.
She's so good at it. She just simply could not
Oh my
get
God,
off.
she's so good at it.
And Fanny's waiting, and Mrs. Norris starts scolding her for being inside.
Yep.
When she doesn't have a horse to go out and ride on.
partially because it's Mrs. Norris.
Yeah. So she's like, "Okay, I'll go outside." So she goes outside to look for Edmund,
Oh.
and she sees them all in the distance. Edmund and Mary on horseback, and the Grants and the Crawfords watching them. Everybody's cheering and laughing, and Fanny feels sad because Edmund has forgotten about her.
It's giving On My Own. It's giving Taylor Swift. Fanny is singing.
Waving through a
Oh!
window. So Fanny is also surprised to see how well Mary is riding. And one might even wonder if Mary is riding for the first time, actually. As they get closer, she sees that he's helping her and he's holding her hand, or at least in Fanny's mind, that's what she's seeing happen. And she starts to feel a little jealous, but she tries not to. She thinks, what could be more natural than Edmund should be making himself useful? But she does think it might make more sense for Mary's brother to be helping her learn how to ride a horse. So that's interesting. Then she
Hmm.
starts thinking that it's gonna be hard on the mare to pull double duty, so maybe she shouldn't ride at all, and she's gonna sacrifice herself because she's like, "If I shouldn't be thought of, at least the horse should be thought of."
Bleak.
Very bleak. Finally, they come, and Edmund is walking next to Mary while she's riding, and Fanny is worried that she's gonna look impatient standing out here, which, like, she should. They're late,
Yes.
but gratitude. Mary apologizes, says she knows she was behaving poorly, and asks Fanny to forgive her because, selfishness must always be forgiven because there is no hope of a cure, which she says about herself.
Yes, she does.
I literally can't. I can't with her. Edmund says, "Oh, it's fine," which also, like, she was not asking for you to say anything, Edmund. But Edmund's like, "Oh, it's fine. Fanny still has plenty of time to ride." And actually, Mary saved her from riding in the worst of the heat. And in fact, he wishes that she would have saved herself the walk home and not have, like, come all the way out here. And she says the only thing fatiguing her is getting off the horse because she is strong and is only fatigued by doing what she doesn't like because she's spoiled.
Yes.
Then Fanny's coachman comes to ride with her because she has like a guy that
Mm.
rides with her. And Fanny is sad because she looks back and she sees everyone's going into town without her, first of all, which they never bring her with them. But like,
Mhm.
I'm just picturing her riding off on the horse and turning around and everyone's laughing. And she's like,
On My Own. Yeah.
exactly. And the coachman says how good a rider Mary is, so much better than Fanny when she started to learn how to ride.
Which just, of course, she was.
And also, like, why would you say that to someone?
Well, clearly this coachman doesn't have a lot of EQ for
Yeah.
when someone's sad about something.
Yeah. Later in the drawing room, the Bertrams continue to praise Mary's riding and say it has a lot to do with her mind and her figure because she's built for it.
Yeah, because she got them riding hips.
Yeah. Edmund then asks Fanny whether she's planning to ride the next day. And Fanny is like, not if you need the mare. Which, like, girl. Ugh.
Like 1 ounce of backbone, girl.
None. She's got
Which
none.
the reason that we get those first few chapters of this book is to form why we know that Fanny just doesn't have a backbone at all.
None.
That is why. And like
Yeah.
as frustrating as she is as a character, like the little girl lives in your head
Yeah.
to remind you why she's like this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He says, well, Miss Crawford was hoping to have the mare for the whole morning to go as far as Mansfield Common, but she wouldn't want to interfere with Fanny's riding time because, of course, she rides only for pleasure. Fanny rides for her health. Fanny says it's okay. She would rather stay home. She says, I am strong enough to walk very well. I am strong enough now to walk very well. So it's giving like, and we've gotten a couple of study questions
Yeah.
about this that we'll talk about, but it's giving like Fanny's sick.
It's never really like specified, but Fanny has what we would call a delicate constitution,
Mm-hmm.
much like a Jane Fairfax. And it's not, Jane Austen doesn't make this abundantly clear, but in olden times, olden times, some people had more delicate health than
Like
other people.
Anne,
Andeberg,
yeah,
Jane Fairfax. We're not Mrs. Smith levels, obviously,
right.
but certainly she is someone more predisposed to illness, shall we say,
Yeah.
and a little bit weaker. And I mean, it's not, like there are a lot of different readings of Fanny and like her level of illness, and there's a lot of readings that Fanny may have a disability That I think is all fair. I read it personally as she is someone who is prone to headaches and sensitive stomach, sensitive head, sensitive skin, like just prone to illness and anxiety
Mhm.
about being ill.
Yeah.
um
It's mostly giving anxiety to me just because, like, later we're gonna talk about her headache, and she complains about a headache, but she says it's more a pain in her mind than in her head. And that's, like, a direct
hmm,
quote from the book. So,
yeah.
yeah, to me, it's giving anxiety and depression.
Yeah, I mean, Fanny is certainly, if I were going to pick one of the 2, certainly it's peak anxiety
Yeah.
symptoms for
Yeah.
sure, and I think combined with, like, just a delicate constitution from
Mhm.
maybe not being perfectly nourished when she was a little kid,
Sure.
she's just more delicate than, say, Mary Crawford, who we have learned is sturdy,
Robust.
robust.
So, everyone except Fanny goes to Mansfield Common, all the young people. And because everyone has such a good time, they go out again to other places the next 3 mornings, which means that Fanny does not get to ride her horse for 4 days in a row. On the 4th day, a damper is put on everyone's good mood because Edmund and Julia are invited to the parsonage.
Temper tantrum.
Mariah is left out.
And I cannot stress this enough, engaged.
She's very engaged, and Mr. Rushworth is supposed to be in town. And so she wasn't invited over to the parsonage because Mrs. Grant knew that Mr. Rushworth was going to call on her, and so they were supposed to hang out. And she's like, "I cannot believe this happened to me." She throws a fit. I was noting that it's interesting how upset she was to be left out when she literally leaves Fanny out every single day. Get a taste
Yep.
of her own medicine there.
Yep, and it's also just like, what is she being left out of?
Hanging out.
Flirting with Henry Crawford, which
She's
yeah,
engaged.
she's very engaged.
Yeah.
Like she's just jealous that her sister gets to go flirt.
Yeah. Her single sister gets to go flirt with a single man when she is engaged.
Very engaged.
Then Rushworth doesn't even come.
I will say that is so shitty though when you have plans. So you basically say no to other plans,
Mhm.
and then your first plans fall through, and you're like, ugh,
You're like, "Now I'm alone."
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's literally my worst nightmare. Not literally. I will say, okay, not
That's
literally.
the worst it gets, guys.
Yeah, I live a very difficult life. So, Edmund and Julia come home that night and they're all buzzed and happy, and they find everyone in the opposite mood from them because Mariah is ignoring them. Lady Bertram's half asleep, and Mrs. Norris is feeling angsty because everyone's being angsty around her and nobody's really paying attention to her. So she's like going silent. And finally, Edmund asks, "Where's Fanny?"
Oh, where is she? Edmund.
Yeah, where is she, Edmund? She's on the other side of the room, by the way, on the sofa. Like, she's right there.
She's got her noise cancelers on.
Yeah. Trying to have a moment of peace and quiet.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Norris immediately starts scolding her, being like, "Why are you over there? Why aren't you working on something? We have all of this fabric. It hasn't been touched. Like, get to work, scum." By the way, she mentions calico, in this case, not a cat, but a kind of fabric
Mhm.
that Fanny needs to be sewing.
The cat, I think, is named for the fabric.
Oh.
Maybe, or is it the fabric named for the cat?
No, it's
there.
probably I don't know. Our listeners will surely tell us.
Yeah, listeners, which came first, the calico cat or the calico fabric?
Yeah. Mrs. Norris says that Fanny should think of other people for once, and it's not a good look to always be hanging out on the sofa. And then Fanny gets up. She's like, not even before she finishes saying this, she's like, "Oh my God, I'm being yelled at." And so she goes and she immediately starts working on something. And then Julia, for the first time ever, comes to Fanny's defense and says, "To be fair, Fanny's probably on the sofa the least of us."
Yeah.
Like, she does the least lounging about. And Edmund then turns to Fanny and asks if she has a headache because he can tell, I guess. And Fanny says she does, since a little bit before dinner, but it's just from the heat and she's fine. And Edmund's like, "Were you outside?" And Mrs. Norris is like, "Of course she was. It's a beautiful day. Like, why would you expect she wasn't outside?" Mrs. Bertram then says, "Well, Fanny was cutting roses." And Mrs. Norris says Lady Bertram should give Fanny her aromatic vinegar. And Lady Bertram says, "Well, she's had it since she came back from your house the second time." And then Edmund blows his lid because Fanny has not only been out cutting roses, but she has walked to Mrs. Norris's house twice. And he's like, "What is going on here? And Mrs. Norris is, like, not paying attention. She doesn't hear him, quote, unquote, but she, like, just doesn't wanna be
Yelled at by her nephew, yeah.
exactly. And then Lady Bertram says, "Well, I was worried it would be too much, but Mrs. Norris needed the roses, and Fanny had to go bring them, and then she forgot to lock the door to the second bedroom because that's where the roses were going for the friend. So she had to go back and lock the door.
And once again, the friend,
Not there.
not
No,
there.
no friend." And Edmund's like, "Could nobody else have done this?" And Mrs. Norris is like, "I would have had to go myself. And I was very busy talking to Mr. Green because something I had promised to do and I had promised to write to someone and that person had promised to go do this thing and I was just so busy.
So busy.
I simply could not have gone to lock the door."
Mhm.
And sometimes, she says, "I go 3 times a day back and forth to my house and you don't see me complaining." And he's like, "Fanny doesn't have half your strength." And Mrs. Norris is like, "Well, if Fanny exercised more, she'd be stronger," which she would have had a chance to do if she had had a fucking horse these last couple days, but no. So she points out Fanny hasn't had the horse, and so she hasn't been walking, so I thought it would be good for her to, like, get some exercise and walk back and forth to my house. And then she says, "Between you and me, I think it was cutting the roses that gave her the headache, not the walking." And Lady Bertram is like, "Yeah, it was very hot in the garden. It was almost too much for me just sitting there and trying to keep Pug from the flower beds," confirming that Pug's name is just
Yep.
Pug. Yeah.
Yep.
Everyone's been saying, "I think Mr. Wobbles' name is just Pug."
Well, I like Wobbles as a name,
Yeah, we're
but
gonna I mean
it would be really funny if Pug were like a basset hound.
if he wasn't even a pug.
Exactly.
If he's just, like, a golden retriever
Named
Pug.
Pug. I kinda love that.
That is really funny, but do we call him Mr. Wobbles or Pug?
Yes.
Yes, and
Yes. I mean, our
Pug
listener
Wobbles.
Pug Wobbles is the full name, so it's
Yeah.
Mr. Wobbles, first name Pug.
Yeah. I'm glad we spent so much time figuring this out. Edmund brings Fanny some wine, and she really doesn't want the wine, but she can't talk without crying, so she just drinks it. She's really going through it, and Edmund starts to feel mad at himself for letting this happen, which
Yeah.
he should.
Yes, badness.
Badness. Is that a word?
Badness is a word.
Badness.
It's what we say to Doc when he's been bad. Like,
Badness.
"You're being a badness." He's
Yes.
being a badness.
He is being a badness, so he feels bad. He shouldn't have kept Fanny from her horse for 4 days, and she's been stuck at the mercy of her aunts, and he resolves that it won't happen again. And Fanny feels as bad as she did her first night at Mansfield Park. She's been feeling neglected for several days. She's been hiding on the sofa because she didn't want to be seen in this moment. And like I said, the pain in her mind was greater than the pain in her head. And then Edmund's kindness had made such a sudden change in her feelings that she just didn't know what to do with herself. I think this is the first moment where she's beginning to realize, I think I'm in love with my cousin. And that's the end of that chapter.
That is, and that brings us to the study questions. I'm just going to jump right into the patron study questions. If you would like us to ask your study questions on the air, all you got to do is join our Patreon at the $15 tier. And then Molly will post a Google Doc before our records. You can submit questions and we will ask them live and answer them. I don't want to say live because we pre-record this.
Yeah.
But anyway, you guys have been really vibing the questions about Mansfield Park. As far as I didn't realize this, but this is our book where the fans are yapping.
They're really yapping.
They're yapping about it. There's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to chew on here. But a lot of these questions kind of overlap with each other. So if I paraphrase a question you ask, it is because someone asked something very similar, but I will note when I am asking a question that two people essentially ask the same thing. Okay, so starting with Janae, we've now had several chapters where our heroine is not the focus and we're hearing about everyone else. How do you feel about it?
It's making me feel differently about a lot of characters. First of all, because we're no longer seeing all of the characters. Well, early on, we saw all of the characters through Fanny's eyes. Then we saw all of the characters through the Crawford's eyes. And now, again, we're seeing kind of from a third party observer. Like, we're not seeing, I mean, we're seeing Fanny see all of this happen, but we're also experiencing Edmund and Mary on their own.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things about the book that's interesting is that Fanny is the POV chapter for chapter 7,
Mhm.
not so much for chapter 6.
Yeah.
But
Oh, big time on chapter 7 though,
yeah,
because we're just, like, watching them ride the horse.
exactly. And she's just not riding the horse. But with a lot of our other heroines, like they're much more active in their own stories, whereas Fanny lets a lot happen to her.
Mhm.
Not blaming, as I said, everything we know about Fanny is formed by those first 2 chapters, which is why I kind of isolated them at the beginning. It's because everything about who she is formed by the fact that she came from nothing and she was brought into ostentatious wealth. And it has formed her into a character that is passive, that is starved for affection, that is willing to mirror other people's views back to them, but also a character that is, she's has her own sense of what's right and what's wrong, and a character that, has an internal life, but one that she doesn't act upon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So Avi and Spring asked a version of the same question, which is about the landscaping and the architecture at play in the first chapter that we
Hashtag
read.
home improvement.
Big Property Brothers, big HGTV. How does this chapter reflect on Mansfield Park, the actual house, and how does it reflect on the characters and their views?
Mm. I think it goes to show that these people like to present wealth and like to present a feeling of opulence and status and like show how high up they are.
Yeah, it turns the landed gentry into like a sport, a
Yeah,
competitive
it's a
sport.
competitive sport. Like, oh my gosh, you're gonna get so much joy out of making yourself look so
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Okay. Next, we have Diana. And this question overlaps pretty heavily with Melissa's question. And they both ask about Fanny's potential chronically ill state slash disabled state and what we can learn about Austen's view on disability and chronic illness in relation to some of her other characters, such as Mrs. Churchill, Marianne, Jane Fairfax, Mrs. Smith, Lady Bertram, et cetera, Baby de Burgh.
Mhm.
Basically, how Austen uses disability and chronic illness to tell her stories and what her commentary is.
Yeah. So viewing Fanny through this kind of lens of chronic illness is kind of what I'm getting from it. Like she's kind of
Hmm.
chronically ill, is what we're talking about. I mean, it puts a different spin on things than just thinking of her as like younger than all of them, because I feel like that's one way to look at it is like earlier I mentioned the quote about him mixing her water with wine, which I don't know if, or mixing her
Hmm.
wine with water rather, watering it down, because I was thinking it was because they're treating her as like younger than she is, but I feel like it could also be because you mentioned like maybe she has a sensitive stomach, maybe she can't handle it.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely ways to view her as like chronically ill, but I think that the way that the family treats her is almost like they keep her a little bit ill. Like,
Yeah.
they're not actually doing anything to improve her state of health by keeping her inside. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
No, I get what you're saying. I think it's like she is a victim.
Mhm.
She's kind of a victimized character.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know if I would say that Austen does this with all of her characters. Oftentimes, illness in Austen plays a role in the story. It
Yeah.
plays a role in the plot. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes being hypochondriac is the thing that Jade Austen feels is the funniest thing to yuck it up about. But in the case of Fanny in particular, I think that she's already on a grander scale at the mercy of the Bertrams.
Mhm.
She has no control. And making her kind of of weak constitution. Not only again does it relate to her growing up with less food
Mhm.
and in an environment that was like less healthy, shall we say, it also puts her even more at their mercy. She
Right.
needs more than just like a bed to sleep in. She needs exercise in a very specific way. She needs people to be gentle with her and tender towards her. They need to be aware of the fact that she can't do a lot of moving around. Like
Right.
there is a way in which it kind of even further caps her. in this story.
Right, and they don't treat her that way. Like,
Yeah.
maybe Edmund has growing
Yeah.
up, but I think the rest of them kind of like Mrs. Norris being like, "Why aren't you working? Why aren't you doing
It
something?"
it also drives home the cruelty of
Right.
Mrs. Norris.
Because she doesn't actually allow Fanny to rest or, like, get the things that she needs.
Yeah.
She wants her to just, like, be okay. So, that is an interesting way to look at it, and to think of her that way. I do wanna think about it going forward because, like, I feel like we kind of put a lot of those other characters to the side, like, Andaberg is not a main character, and Mrs. Smith is not a main character. Jane Fairfax is a main character, but I think most adaptations don't actually treat her as, like, frail or the versions that we've seen anyway, she's been pretty not frail.
I mean, it also does play a role in the story in that it, kind of heightens her, like, ethereal sort of nature,
Mhm.
like,
Exactly, yeah.
more like Emma's like, "Oh, perfect Jane Fairfax, sweet Jane Fairfax needs the special treatment."
Right, and in this is, like Fanny's the main character.
Mhm.
So this is our first main character who has been a potentially chronically ill, maybe disabled person
Delicate
of delicate
constitution, yeah.
constitution, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This is from Katie. Do you think Edmund is using Fanny's trust in him to manipulate her into seeing Mary in the same light he does?
Yes, I do think that Edmund is doing that.
I don't know if I'd phrase it that way.
I don't know if he's doing it on purpose.
Yeah, that's kind of the conceit. The manipulation is the piece of it that I think is interesting to think about because I think that Edmund has, I've said this before, has impressed upon Fanny his own values in their world
Mhm.
pretty heavily. And
Yeah.
it's like Fanny took them all to heart and read them as a Bible and imbued them in her own sense of what was right and wrong.
Yeah.
And Edmund is being sort of like seduced by a temptress. And she's not lining up with those values that he kind of like super impressed. And it's like he's having his inner conflict outside of him with Fanny.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it because I felt like I got whiplash from the moment he has this conversation with Fanny about Mary Crawford's flaws, and then the next minute he's falling in love with her. I felt like I had been manipulated by him because I thought almost that
Oh my,
well
Molly.
well, it felt like he was trying to make Fanny not like her so that she wouldn't catch on to the fact that he was falling in love with her.
I mean, that's a reading, but the way I read it is he is struggling with these thoughts himself. And he knows Fanny has good upstanding morals in part because he gave them to her. And Fanny's sticking to her guns better than Edmund is because she's not as guided by a different part of her body
Yeah.
than he well, we don't know actually, she might be totally gay, but in this particular moment, Edmund's so drawn to Mary Crawford, but she is presenting in ways that he thinks are in his own sort of gut improper,
Yeah.
and he's kind of bouncing it off of Fanny. And like, listen, sometimes we will want to do something or justify a feeling, and we work backwards from there and try to like work it into our own moral systems or our logic systems and to try to get backwards to that conclusion to justify it.
Mhm.
And I think that's what Edmund's doing here is that he wants to spend more time with Mary. He wants to indulge himself, but he thinks it's a little wrong. And he's using Fanny to sort of talk through ways of justifying it.
Yeah, but not to actually hear her opinions about it.
Not to actually hear her opinions about it, which is the problem.
Yeah, because and then he walks away again feeling like he has appropriately formed her opinions.
He's like, okay, so we've straightened this out between the two of us. And what he's actually doing is straightening out an internal conflict. Whereas Fanny's like, oh my God, he listened to me. And
Yeah.
then later she's like, wait, did he
She's just a
listen?
sounding board.
Exactly. That is exactly what she is. She is his sounding board in this moment. And she takes it as something very different.
Mhm.
Mm.
And again, they are first cousins.
Molly's like, now I'm in the know, guys.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
this
listen,
can't happen. 'Cause
they're
first
cousins.
All right. Linnea asked sort of about how, even as far as chapter 7, we've got way more interactions with servants than we usually do in these books, and wanted to sort of know why we think Jane Austen's drawing attention to the servants in this way.
Mhm. So we have this moment between Fanny and her coachman with the
Mhm.
horses, and it's almost like he can talk to her in a way he can't talk to the family, is what I'm getting. Like,
Yeah.
he's kind of, like, rude at her,
Mm.
but he talks to her almost like she's beneath him, but he talks to her like they're on the same level.
Yeah, Mrs. Norris is interacting more closely with the servants and managing the house
Mhm.
than we often see from our Austen heroines. And the servants interact with Fanny in a very different way. Like you said, the coachman comments on Mary's writing.
Mhm.
And the first chapter opens with the servants kind of spurning Fanny
Mhm.
for her clothes and her accent.
And
And
she lives closer to their quarters than everyone else.
exactly. So I think it is that we have a sort of transitory character between the upstairs and the downstairs, if you will. Because Fanny's technically kind of more part of the upstairs. She dines with them. She's their cousin. She's like a part of the household.
Mhm.
But they don't treat her like most wards get treated in Jane Austen. No one's making Emma Woodhouse go out and like trim roses. No one's making Jane Fairfax go out and trim roses. Like that is
And run them to someone else's house.
yeah, that is like a servant task. We are living closer to the servant class in this character than we usually do in a
Yeah.
Jane Austen novel.
Mhm.
Good question. Okay. Melissa asks Mansfield Park seems to have more monologues than other Jane Austen books. What do you think brings to this specific story? Some of the characters have much more of them than others. What does that say about each character? I'm not sure I like totally could like pinpoint that this is the Jane Austen book with the most monologues. Like
Mhm.
I think Emma's got some hefty ones,
Yeah.
but I do take the point that I think it feels like more like the characters are talking more in their to like to themselves than
There's more
others.
contrast between Fanny and the rest of them.
Yeah, and also I feel like the characters are talking past each other more in this book.
Mm.
It's less of a dance of a conversation. I do think some of them are sparkling conversationalists in certain ways, but like you get that rapport most, I think, honestly, between like so far what we've seen, Mary and Henry alone,
Yeah.
kind of like quipping at each other like inappropriately
Yeah.
in a way that's kind of fun.
Yeah. I think it's funny because usually the very, like, verbose characters are more side characters like, Miss
Bates.
Bates, thank you. And, like, they're the funny characters that, like, go off. Like,
Yeah.
what's her name also? Mrs. Jennings,
Oh,
our
Mrs.
queen,
Bennet.
Mrs. Bennet.
Yeah.
And
Always
in
a
this
mouthy broad.
yeah, in this, it's, like, younger characters and, like, more main characters that are like, "Blah, blah, 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 blah."
I think it also has to do with Fanny. I mean, we saw this with Anne in Persuasion a bit, but like a lot of the funny and the quippy happens around her.
Yeah.
And that's true of Fanny too, but even sort of more extreme because like Anne kind of wryly observes the people
Mhm.
around her, but kind of just doesn't participate.
Yeah.
Whereas Fanny approaches it all with a sort of earnestness and anxiousness
Yeah.
that is palpable in
Yeah.
all of her interactions. Whereas Anne's kind of like more sturdy and sure of herself. But I think it does come from having a main character that doesn't speak much, and all these other higher class people like the sound of their own voices.
Yeah.
Okay. Spring asks, what do you make of Edmund gradually forgetting Fanny and his subsequent realization that he badly fucked up? What does this say about him? Great moment for you to talk about Edmund.
Yeah. I'm mad at Edmund. I'm annoyed at Edmund because he is proving that he's more like the rest of his family than we thought he was.
Oh.
Sick burn.
Ooh, but it's probably deserved. Yeah, I think up until this point, Edmund's been our touchstone for who treats Fanny like a full person.
Mhm.
And here we've seen hints of this. I like they've been plopped in every so often, like his reaction to her going to live with Mrs. Norris, for example, where he hasn't behaved perfectly, but the horse is really where you see him just being willing to forsake her needs for his own selfish wants in this
Yeah.
moment. And he does correct, to
Yeah.
be fair to Edmund. He does correct. But
Yes.
that is the behavior that his parents have exhibited that made Fanny feel so alone.
Yeah.
That is the behavior his sisters exhibited that made Fanny an outcast in their
And that's
playtime.
why she's been depressed these last couple days. That's why she has a headache.
Yes, I would have a headache if the only person who treated me nice was suddenly kinda mean to me.
Yeah. This is so strange. It's reminding me of something else in pop culture, and I don't remember what movie it is or what book it is. And I will have to just, this will just be an ongoing process until I figure out what it reminds me of. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's something where there's a person who one other person cares for her, and then she realizes that he is just like the rest of them. And she's like, "You're just like the rest of them." And I don't remember what movie this is
It's a pretty common trope,
that Jane Austen invented.
hello. Yeah, this happens all the time. The idea that, like, you found someone who's different than everybody else, but at the end of the day, they're kinda just a nicer version of everybody else, but they're not better.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So the last question is kind of going to be a blend between Becca's study question and study questions from Janae, Maria, and Angelica. And this is about our girl, Mary Crawford.
Mm.
There's so much to say about Mary.
Mhm.
So Mary Crawford, there's so much to say about Mary. You really start to get a sense of who she is in these chapters, and you were not a fan.
No.
Tell me why.
I think that she's entitled
Mm-hmm.
and unaware
Mm-hmm.
of, like, her own privilege in this world. Not in a way where she doesn't know she has privilege, but unaware of the fact that it's not a good look to look down on people.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Emma in the beginning of Emma, for example.
Yes. I love that observation. By the way, the Emma at the beginning of Emma is a good
Mhm.
one.
Yeah.
Um, who do you think is right about her, Edmund or Fanny?
Um, Fanny. Mm. But I also think that Fanny is a reflection of things that Edmund has put into her head.
I mean, she is a character with her own thoughts, but like she, in this particular instance, like she's working off the moral system and the rules of the world that she's learned from Edmund.
Yes, but she's irked by Mary, and I relate to that. So I think that she's right, but I also think that there are probably things to like about Mary Crawford, and so Edmund's not wrong. I mean, I think he's wrong in, like, some of his behaviors.
Yep.
He's blinded by, lust, potentially.
How does she serve as a foil to Fanny?
I think we've talked about this a little bit already, but, like, they've both come from, like, adverse
Yeah.
circumstances, and one of them is dealing with it in a way of, like, becoming louder and prouder about everything, and one of them is letting it, like, beat them down and make them quieter and fade into the background.
Yeah.
Additionally, both in love with the same person, and he doesn't think of Fanny as an option because she's his cousin, but also because she's Fanny and she's delicate and small and childlike, and she's his little kid sister and his cousin.
Yeah. They're very much cousins.
But and then there's this beautiful woman who comes in and is, like, incredible and so good at riding the horse automatically, like, she doesn't even have to try.
Plays the harp.
She plays his favorite instrument, and so there's just, like, no competition,
Yeah.
and, oh my god, what movie is this like?
We'll
It
get there.
okay. Anyway, yeah, I think that's part of how they're foils to each other, like, yeah.
I have so many Mary Crawford thoughts, and I'm not going to detail all of them here because obviously we have a whole book to get through.
Mhm.
But I do want to make a couple observations. One, I would say, I think like you're right that the passive versus the active is like so the biggest difference between the two women. But I also think that you're right, they both come from odd adverse circumstances that would have been sort of formative to them, and the way that they've expressed an odd upbringing is very different.
Mhm.
And part of what Fanny is clocking in Mary, and I should bring this up, even though it's not sort of like in time, is ill breeding,
Yeah.
like poor manners, and like that being a reflection on her morally. That's one. Number two, I think honestly, I think Mary's kind of the funniest character,
She is really funny.
and I think that's really strange in a Jane Austen novel because Fanny's a lot of things. She is not funny.
Right, and a lot of our main characters, Anne aside, have been, like, bubbly and, like, amusing.
Amusing.
Yeah, amusing. I guess Eleanor Dashwood aside as well.
I mean, Eleanor, as we might remember, is super sassy in her head
In her
all
head.
the time.
Yes.
And Anne has a little bit of that too, but
Mhm.
sort of the wry observer, whereas Fanny is so earnest. And she's kind of like clocking things that are going wrong, but she's like, but that's none of my business,
She's like, "Oh, it
Edmund.
makes sense that
Yeah.
they're hanging out all the time. It makes sense I wouldn't be invited, of
Hmm.
course." Yeah.
Yeah. But I do think that I like the Emma Woodhouse comp because, like, in some ways, Fanny is an odd Austen heroine when there's a Mary Crawford who's sparkling and pretty and witty
Mhm.
right next to her,
Yeah.
but has these like red flags.
Yeah, Maria points out that the way that they treat their benefactors is very different,
Hmm.
and we've talked about this a lot already, but, like, Fanny thinking that gratitude is the ultimate emotion that she needs to
Almost
have.
like someone beat that into her.
Yeah,
Norris.
yeah, exactly, and then, meanwhile, Mary doesn't feel the need to express gratitude and will even, like, talk shit about her benefactors.
Yeah.
And Angelica, who also asked a question about Mary, talks about the way that Mary talks and
Hmm.
ho and
And that's what I'm getting at with the
yeah.
quips.
Yeah, her quippiness and her, like, liveliness and her, as you said, sparkling conversation. She is sparkling.
She's a shiny object.
She's a exactly.
But, like, she's also pretty well formed as a character. We've gotten to know her a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, she's the main character in her own story.
She is giving main character energy, and she is a side character,
Yeah.
and what I find, like, really to be the personality trait that those 2 really lack at this point in the story, like, the one I should say where they're the most different is, like, how much they will stand up for themselves and how much they are self-assured in what they deserve in life, and they're, like, 2 ends of the spectrum on that because Mary is so entitled,
Yeah.
and Fanny is so a doormat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
That is the patron study questions. Listeners, if you want us to ask your questions on the air, you can join our Patreon at the $15 tier and ask away. I'm going to keep it really brief on the Becca study questions because we had a lot of patron study questions, and I think we've covered a lot of the ground already that we were going to discuss. So I want to talk about the Edmund and Fanny conversation. We've talked a lot about what that conversation looks like for Edmund and Fanny. What we haven't talked about is what that interaction tells us about Mary. We touched on it, but like the ill breeding of it all.
Well, it's interesting because, like, for all intents and purposes, she shouldn't have been ill-bred because she was raised by an admiral and his wife. I guess I don't know how high up that is, but, like,
She's wealthy,
yeah, like, she should have good, quote, unquote, "breeding,"
theoretically.
but something went astray. I don't know what, like, the deal was with her education or her mom. Well, I know what happened with her mom. With her aunt, I don't know what happened with her aunt.
She showcased accomplishments for sure.
Yeah,
So she's had some breeding, like technically, but there's something about her that's off on the breeding.
yeah.
And something and it's a good kind of like nature versus nurture.
I was gonna say because Mrs. Grant and her started their lives together and then split off.
Well, Mrs. Grant's a lot older than her, but yes.
Sure, I guess Mrs. Grant started her life, or Mary started her life with Mrs. Grant.
Mhm. But Mrs. Grant did not have the same parenting
No.
that Mary did.
They say that you don't have the same parents as your sister, and your sister doesn't have the same parents as her older sister, and
And it's more than that. They're half siblings,
oh, sure,
and
that's true too.
their mutual parent died when Mary was very little,
Right.
and
Oh, yeah, I forgot that they're half siblings.
Mrs. Grant's a lot older,
Mhm.
so Mary's lived under different guardianship her whole life.
Right.
We talked about the horse, so I'm going to skip the horse, but I do want to talk a little bit more about the love story that is kind of brewing between Edmund and Mary and what it means for Jane Austen to have already plopped a love story hurdle in a way that I don't think one could say we've seen at this point in any other Jane Austen novel in front
No.
of her heroine.
Well, because we haven't really seen a heroine. I'm gonna stick my foot in my mouth because we just read Persuasion.
No, here's the well, here's how I would phrase it, and you
Yeah.
can tell me if I'm wrong. We saw Eleanor deal with Lucy Steele.
Yeah.
We saw Emma deal with Jane Fairfax and Frank Churchill and Mr. Elton in that whole debacle.
Yeah.
We've seen Anne Elliot watch Captain Wentworth court Louisa.
Mhm.
None of those situations did we hear he's falling in love.
We heard that they thought he was.
Yeah, and in some cases, Anne was like, he's not in love with her. He might marry her, but he's not in love with her. Like,
Mhm.
with Lucy Steele, it was a long lost love from years ago.
Mhm.
With Frank Churchill, it was always very clear Emma wasn't sure that what she was feeling was love, and then decidedly thought, okay, I'm
I'm
not
not in
feeling
love. Yeah.
love. Mr. Elton, even not in love with anybody, really, just
Right.
a social climber. Like, what we hear from Jane Austen in this chapter is that Edmund is falling in love with her, and despite her better instincts, she is starting to develop feelings for him.
Well, and I don't know if we've had before a heroine that is in love with someone who's not in love with her back.
Unrequited tropes are here.
Yeah, like we've at least been observing Fanny be in love. She doesn't know or my headcanon is that she doesn't fully understand
Yeah.
what she's feeling. Maybe she does, I don't know. But to have him not lead her on because they're cousins, but to give her enough attention that she falls in love with him and then to go be in love with someone else. Oh my god, what movie is this from? Do you know?
No,
No, okay.
it's also on the tip of my tongue. Listeners, if you know what movie we're talking about here, let us know, but don't do it if it's gonna spoil things for
Yeah, yeah,
Molly.
yeah, like if it's a Mansfield Park adaptation or something.
I'm gonna be real straight with you. There are not a lot of Mansfield Park
But maybe this
adaptations.
is a secret one because it's like a girl. Okay, I'm not gonna go on this tangent again, but yeah, basically, what I'm saying is, I think this is the first time that we've seen someone be in love with someone who doesn't hate her, but just thinks of her as a friend, and then goes off and falls in love with someone else. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard, especially when she hasn't yet like said, "Oh, I'm in love with him and I'm sad about it." She's just like, "Why isn't he hanging out with me anymore? My best friend."
Hard to say.
Yeah. But
Ooh.
I don't think it's wrong that those two should fall in love.
Yeah, I mean, neither one of them's under any obligation, but there's something about it that feels ugh.
And also, like, she was courting his brother and hasn't told his brother yet that she's done courting him.
He did leave without, like, following up with her, and they had
That's
met,
true.
like, twice.
That's
So,
true. That's true. I guess that's fair.
yeah, it's not like Big T was, like, showing any deep interest in Mary Crawford.
Sure.
It was just that Mrs. Grant wanted that connection.
I will say, though, that she does kind of, when she starts falling in love with him, she's like, I'm not going to think about this too hard.
Why not?
Well, because he's beneath her.
Why is he beneath her?
She thinks that he has no, or at least the way that I read it, she was talking about him not having any, like, he's not the eldest brother.
Ding, ding, ding.
Phew.
Yep, that would be why. Big T is set to inherit an estate.
Yeah. Little T's not. Sorry, he's not little T.
Big
What's his name?
little E. Little E is set to inherit the parish house
Yeah.
and to live his days as a solemn little preacher.
Yeah.
And Big T gets to party it up with a giant estate. One of those is a more desirable match.
Yeah.
Funniest quote.
Okay, so this is from like the first page.
The apricots.
The apricots. The tree thrives well beyond a doubt, madam. The soil is good, and I never pass it without regretting that the fruit should be so little worth the trouble of gathering.
Oh my god. And
Becca relates.
I hate apricots, so this is perfect, but it's also you could just see Mrs. Norris's face.
It's going purple.
Yeah, just like furious.
Yeah.
Questions moving forward.
If not her cousin, then whomst?
Holmes.
Yeah.
Who wins the chapters?
God, I mean, not Edmund. The thing is, Mary Crawford is getting what she wants and is also getting the spotlight in these. So I guess we can give it to Mary Crawford.
Yeah, I was gonna say the mayor.
Sure, the mayor.
She
She's
put in
pulling double duty.
so much work went into this chapter for the mayor, honestly,
Yeah.
and she's trying to make everybody happy.
Yeah, let's give it to the mayor, actually.
Yeah, go horsey. It's not your fault you're a pawn in these stupid love games.
Yeah.
Listeners, that concludes this episode of Pod and Prejudice. For next time, I'm going to be a little ambitious here. We're going to read the next 3 chapters, which should be chapters 8 through 10 of Mansfield Park. Molly, are you excited?
I can't wait to see what happens next.
Ooh, okay. So until next time, stay proper.
And be nice to your horse if they're overtired. Don't go out and ride them all day.
Yes.
Yeah. Pod and Prejudice is edited by Molly Burdick and audio produced by Graham Cook. Our show art is designed by Torrance Brown. Our show is transcribed by SpeechDocs Podcast Transcription. For transcripts and to learn more about our team, check out our website at podandprejudice.com. To keep up with the show, you can follow us on social media at Pod and Prejudice. If you love what you hear, check out our Patreon to see how you can support us, buy some merch at podandprejudice.dashery.com, or just drop us a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. Stay proper.